Shalom, I represent Brit-Am. Brit-Am. Brit-Am, Hebrew awareness. We understand that the lost 10 tribes, the lost 10 tribes of Israel, are to be found amongst Western nations, amongst Western peoples. That is where the lost 10 tribes are. We don't say that everyone in those areas is descended from Israelite tribes. We say that a significant proportion of the population in that is, and that is where the lost 10 tribes are. That's where the Bible places them. It's where empirical evidence, all kinds of proofs also indicate that they are to be found there amongst Western nations. And that is where the sources locate them. And that is sufficient for us. And that is what we believe in and we promote. And that these peoples have fulfilled biblical prophecies concerning them. And this is also proofs as to who they are. It is evidence. It's what we use. And we endeavour to impart this knowledge to as many people in those areas as possible. And this does not mean that they can all come to Israel. This does not mean that they can all come to Israel tomorrow. First, certain processes have to be gone through. We understand from the sources that there will be two Messiahs, the Messiah son of Joseph and the Messiah son of David. The Messiah son of Joseph comes first. He will lead the 10 tribes back. He will bring them together and he will tell them who they are and begin the process. He will also assist the Jews in rebuilding the land. And this may have been begun already, because the Messiah son of Joseph, according to the sources, represents not only a specific individual who will come, but also a whole process, a whole historical occurrence lasting quite a while, that he will embody, that he will bring to fruition, but that may well begin long before his time. This is what we may be seeing now. The state of Israel coming into being, a good portion of the Jews returning to the land of Israel, building up the land. They've been doing this, they did this first with the British, and after that they've been doing it with the help of America, with other Israelite nations, despite fictions, despite disagreements, despite impediments and delays and all kinds of problems. On the whole, the big picture is that it's been going forward very well from an historical point of view, relatively speaking. So that is what we understand. And we understand that this process of returning will involve all of the lost 10 tribes as a people, as a group, that they will return as a group, not necessarily as individuals, not in tricks and trickles. It will not be like the Jews. The Jews have been coming back, but they've been coming back in small groups or in families or as individuals. A lot of them, that is the way they've been coming. Whereas the lost 10 tribes, when they will return as a body. It's a body of people. So this is an important distinction. And this is something that we thought we'd talk about, because we get people, there are people who receive this information, that some of them have always been pulled towards the Jewish people, towards the land of Israel. They want to return to the land of Israel, they want to become part of what is going on, but they don't want to convert to Judaism. They don't even want to be necessarily part of the Jewish people. They want to remain as they are, but they want to be here. And so we try and tell them that the time is not ready. That is not what our message is. Our message is to tell them who they are, tell them who their ancestors are, or most probably were, and that more research needs to be done on this and more awareness are ours, and this message has to go out to more and more people, and it has to be developed. Processes have to be set into place from where they are. But nevertheless, people still want to come, and we get all kinds of messages, and some of these people are very sincere, very nice people. So a recent message that we received, I'll read it out and then I'll answer it, and hopefully this will also give an answer and impart information that will be of service To others who have also been thinking along those lines or are interested in the subject. The question said, do you have a publication I might purchase to send to a Jewish friend in Israel who had convinced himself that only Jews can make Aliyah, that is, go up to Israel. Aliyah in Hebrew means ascension, go up, and that the other tribes must become Jews in order to live there. And he means by that they must be converted by rabbis into Orthodox Judaism. That is what this person was told. Repentance and faithful returning to the covenant according to him is insufficient. That is the question. And we wrote back to them, and then we had received another letter, a continuation of the person that said, I do not accept what you seem to be saying, that Jews have a superior claim on the promised land above their brother tribes. When the lost 10 tribes comprise a larger part of the whole house of Israel, and that is true. Originally there were 12 tribes of Israel. 10 of these tribes were exiled and lost consciousness of their ancestry, and they are the lost 10 tribes, and therefore they comprise the majority portion of the tribes of Israel. But nevertheless they were lost, and they are still lost. They are not aware of their ancestry on the whole. So we'll add to this, at all events, continuing with this letter, that the lost 10 tribes figure prominently in prophecy. That is correct, starting with Jacob's blessing on Joseph's sons Manasseh and Ephraim. That is also correct. That Joseph received a blessing. This blessing was given over to his sons Ephraim and Manasseh by Jacob, that they would be exceedingly numerous, and that they would rule over other peoples and be extremely wealthy, and that they would rule over a good portion of the earth and influence all of mankind for the better, which is something that they have done. This was a promise given unto them. And it says, the letter goes on, the prophecy is that the lost 10 tribes will return to their own promised land in the last days. This is also true that the biblical prophets, such as Zechariah and Micah, they said that and also Jeremiah and others, they said when the lost 10 tribes return, they will go back to the land of Israel, and the indications are that they will receive a tribal portion. Ezekiel 48 also says all the 12 tribes, when they return, each one will receive its own tribal portion to dwell in. At which time the state of Israel will be expanded to the full promise of land that is true from the Nile to the Euphrates and beyond. The great land of Great Israel encompasses a great area much bigger than the present-day state of Israel. And the letter continues. What the Jews do have, however, is sure knowledge of the tribe to which they belong. The letter says, can only speculate that I am Ephraimite because my ancestors came from Great Britain and Wales, and so on. And the writer says, I have a problem with my brother tribe Judah. The truly prophesied Messiah will surely straighten this out and build the third and final temple. In my day, I pray. So the letter is correct insofar as what it says, but it is incorrect concerning the basic assumption of it. Now, if someone wants to come to the land of Israel, can do so. Anyone can come to the land of Israel. You can come to the land of Israel as a tourist. You can come and stay. There are all kinds of programs for volunteers. And some people, a lot of people from the lost 10 tribes do come. Some of them convert to Judaism. They stay here. I met quite a few. And they are people who also believe they're from lost 10 tribes, and they find them all over Israel. And now this has been going on for generations. Now they have children and grandchildren, and their children and grandchildren. It's quite a large number of people when you start to hear about them, look around. And a lot of individuals like that, people from lost 10 tribes who have returned and attach themselves to the Jewish people. And so too, people can come here. Some people pretend to be Jewish and they're allowed into the country. Some people come and admit that they're not Jewish and do not want to convert, but they ask to have a special exception be made for them, and that is also done in some cases, but not in all cases. And so that is the reality. Also, the law of return, the Jewish law of return in the land of Israel, in effect says that anyone with a Jewish grandparent, whether they're their religion is Jewish or not. Anyone with a Jewish grandparent come back to the land of Israel, become a citizen of Israel, and numerous people like that do, especially from Russia. And from Russia, a lot of people who possibly have a Jewish grandparent, possibly don't, they're not even sure, they are allowed in because that is the policies to encourage as many people from Russia to come in, because Putin is also in favor of it. They have their own reasons. Also, these Russians come in and they are secular, they are Western in their orientation, and they are very reserved about religion. They do not want to become Jewish. And they do not want to keep the law, and they strengthen the secular elements within Israeli society who are afraid of being overwhelmed by the demographic forces, by the fact that the ultra-Orthodox Jews have large families, and they're constantly growing, and they're afraid that they will eventually overtake the country, or their influence will grow, because the more people have, the more influence you receive, the more votes you get in the end. And so this is a known phenomenon. So we go according to the Bible, according to our understanding. Our understanding is that the ideal situation is that all the Jews should come to the land of Israel, or as many Jews as possible should come and settle here, and they all should keep the law of Moses, and they should be religiously observant. And that is what they have to do. At present, only perhaps 20%, perhaps 30%, and it depends on what standard you strive to achieve. You adhere, perhaps much less, but only a portion of the Jews in the land of Israel keep the law. But it is not insignificant. It's not. It is a large portion, a smaller portion, a minority portion, but a large portion, which is important. And we don't know what the Almighty wants. That is, the Almighty has His own plan, His own grand plan, and eventually He may bring all of the Jews back, and they all will repent and become religious, because many of them stop being religious because of persecutions, because through no fault of their own, because of the situation, and they may return, God willing. So that is our understanding of the situation. That's our understanding of the situation.